which my stuff got cold this year, where I'm sure you guys had this too, where like it was the first couple weeks of the year where it was like -9 in Georgia, which is like unheard of for like a week. It killed the bushes in my front yard.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 525, and we are talking with Casey Cannon from Cannon Fire Reptiles. We're going to be talking about, yes, you guessed it, Morelia bredli, much more to that. We're going to be talking about his experience with ball pythons and some of the struggles he had coming from breeding carpet pythons and bredli. We talk about Casey's new approach for breeding rodents. I think the other thing I appreciated about this episode was that on the last time we had Casey on talking about finding the bredlis in the wild, I didn't get to talk in that episode, and in this one, we get to hit on that. We also talked about when he found a diamond python, too. I mean, how can you not? Let's get into it. To another episode of Morelia Python Radio. This is episode 525, and we're joined by Casey Cannon. We haven't talked to Casey in, God, it feels like forever.
Well, there was that. There was
Years?
the lost episode. Yes,
I've got a new phone since then. So we're okay.
Okay.
that was a good hour or two with you and Billy Hunt that no one will ever hear.
Yeah. That was actually pretty good talk.
It was.
And,
we
disappeared and
try to clean it up
in the internet.
Yeah.
But so we're going to talk to Casey about obviously bredli.
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
I feel like I must have not been on the episode. I kind of remember like a while we had some kind of, this is years ago, we had like a bredli round table, and I think you talked about finding them in the wild on that show.
There was a round table.
Yeah.
And it was like I had just gotten back from Australia, and then we did the round table. So we like do the round table, and then the last like 45 minutes of the episode is me talking about the trip.
Okay.
That must have been one of those round tables where you're like, we have set it up. We have 12 guests. Oh, and I'm feeling ill. You handle it. And I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah. So,
yeah, I wasn't there. Yeah. I wasn't there. I can't remember why, but
probably
for whatever reason.
Lung issue. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, you know how that goes. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about we got reptile industry stuff to talk about. We have the hot take we'll get since we're on this hot take of inbreeding, depression. We've had Ryan, who we've had so far. Ryan Young, Nick Mutton.
Yeah.
And who was the first one that we had talk about?
Does Lucas talk? Does Lucas count?
Lucas did.
Yeah. Well, that was on the Patreon. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, what's going on with you before we get in with Casey?
Me? Absolutely nothing. It is
splendid.
I'm waiting on eggs from several carpets, and this week is going to be Christmas because I got white lips and dun eye coming this week. So, yeah.
So what is this, a flip flop? The white lips?
The white lips are a trade. I sent a gold female to Lisa, and she's sending me a black male. So then that gets me back up to 2.2 of blacks, and I don't even know how many golds at this point. There's one less.
Okay.
So that's that, and then the dun eye or something that I was working out with a friend. So
yeah, very cool, very cool.
And then no more snakes, I swear. No more. For a while.
Okay.
We're done for a while.
Sure.
Stop.
I wanted to what do I have? No, I really don't have anything to go. No. I just started I paired up the diamond pythons, so we'll see what goes on with that.
My bredli were locked this morning, man. So
okay.
It's winter breeding time or spring breeder time. Yeah.
Yeah. I see a lot of clutches dropping, which is cool.
This year is going to be like somehow all of a sudden this year turned into a year for granites because I have counted at least 4 people who have clutches of granites coming.
Yeah.
Straight granite IJs. So
I saw Balin produce granites.
Yes.
Again.
Yeah.
Is that with you? Or?
No. My het female.
Oh, he went solo.
Yeah. Well, my het female that I had with him, I think she passed. and then I don't know if he kept some of the babies back and raised them up, and that's where we're at, or if he just went out and found himself a new het. But he's got a pair. I know Kohler's got a pair. I want to say
Billy Hunt's making hets with Outcross Farm Bred project. So
nice. See, you can build up a cool project soon.
Yeah.
So
I saw he produced Nova Guineas too. He got a clutch. Eric Kohler.
Yeah,
clutch.
Yeah, Eric Kohler's on a tear right now. He's got a ton of clutches on the ground. And then Billy Hunt's got that. He put that one Macklot's Python basking belly up. And I'm like, I'll take her. Just give me her. You can keep the eggs. Give me her, and I'll bring her here. So, yeah.
Billy, I have some stuff going to Billy, I guess, now that the weather is starting to warm up. But he sent me some coastal stuff. Holy shit, dude. It's really starting to come into color.
You coastal stuff?
Yeah.
Look at you. You're sliding into the background of becoming like the king of coastals all of a sudden again. You got caramel stuff from me. You're getting stuff from Billy. I see you back there. Mm-hmm. I see you hiding. Yeah.
Yes. My Brisbane, though, my female, right, has the same thing that male had. Remember the face was swollen?
Are you kidding me again?
Yeah. I don't know if it's something with those snakes in particular, or
I don't know. I'm down to 2 Brisbanes now. I got an adult male and a baby female. So
maybe it's because of inbreeding. I don't know.
I was going to bring that up with, because we'll talk Brisbanes later.
Casey's like, I'm so glad you segued into that now, not when later.
So let's stop rambling. Let's get the convo going. So how you been, man?
Yeah,
long time no talk. What's up? How you been? Good.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, you.
Yeah. Sorry, I was like, okay, I don't know if you're still talking to Owen or not. But
no.
Yeah.
Forget that guy.
I've been in the process of upgrading my room. I've rewired a couple new. I had a couple like old wires in my snake room that honestly escaped rats and chewed. So I've had to like cut them, strip them down, put new wiring on top of them, so I don't have garage fire. That's literally like what I've been doing this afternoon.
Preventing fires. Good.
Preventing fires, rewiring stuff, because whether we like to admit our hobby is or not, it's there's a lot of like really basic like plumbing, electrical, like there's a lot of little life skills you have to be able to do reptile keeping well.
Yeah. I'm learning how to solder, so I can start like.
I need to learn how to do that. That's like one thing left for me to learn how to do is basic soldering.
I've been watching several YouTube videos. I'm going to go get all the gear, and I'm going to solder myself some LED lights and stuff. And
see, this is the one thing I am good at, because I know this from the guitar. You know, you want to change your pickup out, you got to solder the new pickup in. You know what I mean? So
what you do?
Yeah. Oh. Heck yeah.
I did not know that.
When you're a poor, struggling musician, man, you know, you got to learn to do that shit yourself.
You can't just walk and grab one of your other mini guitars.
No, it doesn't work like that. Okay, so I was curious. I think the last time we talked to you, you were upgrading caging and doing some kind of rack versus or / hybrid cage thing. Is that still something you're working with? Has that worked out?
So I have that. It worked great. It's my parents' house right now. I haven't brought it up here yet. So it exists. It works phenomenally. I just don't have it in use right now. It's in storage in the basement. But
so for people that don't know, maybe explain what your idea was.
So what that cage was it's basically a 2x3x2 enclosure, right? Except you could just pull it out like a shelf. So basically I tried to make a cage that had the benefits of a rack, but I could still use radiant heat panels, because I prefer radiant heat panels or light bulbs over heat tape. And then I wanted to be able to have something where I could have shelving. I only used it for my male Bredls, which I keep my male Bredls very small.
Right.
So they do pretty well in like a 2x3x2 enclosure, because they're like 4 feet long and 800 grams.
The question that I get asked a lot about Bredls is like you have quite a big group of them. What's your biggest female? What's the size of your biggest female?
The biggest one I have ever had, which she died a couple years ago of a spinal tumor, She was like 8'2".
Okay.
And I'd say I haven't really taken anything out to measure it per se, but I've got a few that are probably like 7.5 feet at this point.
Okay.
I've heard people say like, oh, there are 10-footers, there's 9-footers. I've never seen one, but there was an animal at last Daytona that
Really?
I wanted to get out because it probably was. It was the biggest Bredl's python I've ever seen in my entire life. It was gigantic.
Was it like an overfed Bredl?
Oh,
yeah,
it was.
like a
But
joke.
I was still like, I want to pull this thing out because it
Still
looks
huge.
like a Burmese python.
They're deceptively large because I think I pulled my big adult female out, and I'm like, come on, and then oh crap, it's still coming. Like, oh, all right. So they can be deceptive when that comes, but
Especially when you always see them curled up. But I mean, that's that way with
Exactly.
any arboreal python is when they're curled up,
Right.
you're like, okay, I got a gist of how big you are. And then you start pulling them out and you're like, oh, you're about like 40% bigger than I thought you were.
Right.
You have like 3 more feet to you than I thought. Yeah.
You know, to me, scrub pythons were always the king of that because they're also a little bit on the slender
Oh, scrubs
scale.
are
Yeah.
crazy for that.
They're
Yeah.
supposed to be slender, right?
Yeah.
Let's say that. Typically, they're not, but they're supposed to be. But if you're keeping them right and you take it out and you're like, whoa, you know.
I'm running out of
shit.
space behind me. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I think I jokingly described a scrub to a friend who didn't know what it was. I was like, imagine a carpet python that you grab by the tail and then swung it around your head so it like stretched out like a piece of silly putty. And that's like the general body plan of a scrub python.
I mean,
Pretty much.
I mean, you're not wrong. It's like how it's a Owen Pelly python. What was it like? Imagine a children's python on roids. Like it was that. So,
Yeah. I get that question a lot about Bredls, and you know, my experience has always been, you know, well, we've talked about it all the time where it's like, you know, there's always these outliers that are like one-offs of animals that maybe are 9 feet, maybe 10 feet or whatever the case would be. But typically you're looking at about 7 foot, which is
Right.
kind of like, you know, which is a doable size snake. So what have you been up to with Bredls, like since the last time we talked?
So as far as the Bredl stuff goes, since I moved, I moved and I started grad school, right? So
Okay.
I have not been putting as much like hardline focus in my reptile room as I did in the past. So I actually took a year off last year,
Okay.
and I even like sent a couple things off to some friends. So Billy bred a couple of my Bredls over at his place last time, and I didn't have any babies at all, which honestly I'm glad about because I don't know if I could have dealt with a bunch of baby Bredl's pythons. But I'm giving them a try this year. I haven't cooled them down as hard as I would when I was like really trying,
Okay.
but I also don't want like 8 clutches of Bredl's pythons.
If it happens, it happens. You know.
You know,
it's-
I hope it doesn't, but you know,
It's what did you think about taking the year off? What was your feeling?
well, I didn't necessarily do it on purpose, and I still bred stuff. It's just like I said, I've had some life shifts in the last couple of years to where I'm just, and I'm trying to get to the point where I do refocus on my reptile room because, you know, I want to start breeding reptiles again that aren't ball pythons because ball pythons will breed no matter what. Ball pythons are the easiest snake in the world to breed.
Right.
They're not exactly the easiest snake in the world to get feeding and get going. We can talk about that later, but let's talk about Bredl's pythons.
Yeah.
But I mean, taking a year off, I think it was a good thing. I think it let my females get a little bit bigger. It gave me some time to start thinking about how I want to upgrade things, where I want to move stuff to. So I think having a lighter year last year was a good thing for me.
Yeah, me too. I found that similar to what you're saying, kind of like gives you a minute to take a breath, you know, especially after like coming off of a crazy season where you've had more than expected.
Well, that year I was planning on having one of my biggest years ever. It just
Oh, really? It just didn't happen?
well, I had enough stuff to do it for once,
Right.
but it was also like I don't want to be like doing this intensive cool down that I would do before I moved, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, well, you know, my old system, which is still in my mind, probably the best system for it, for me at least. It was one that involved me taking them out of their enclosure, putting them in containers, moving them to somewhere cold, and then moving them back at night. Which, when you get to a big group, especially when you have to move them up and down stairs like I did,
it's a lot of snakes.
It's a lot of snakes. And I mean, it took a while to get that going. And it's also like, okay, I have to go up to the snake room at 9, load everything up, hopefully be done with that by 9:45. And then I got to be up at like, I don't know, 6 or 7 to get them up, because I only keep the lights on for like 8 to 6 hours in the wintertime. So I can't just be late going into the reptile room.
Right.
Jeez.
Man, that's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's a huge pain in the balls.
Yeah. So the way I got it set up now, I think the other room's going to get colder. So I might not have to do that anymore. And I'm also probably not going to be focusing as hard on trying to get 100% success rate on Bredl's pythons.
Right.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a double-edged sword there.
Have you, do you feel that you have them dialed in now with all the years that you've been breeding them?
If I absolutely had to, I think I could get maybe not 100% success rate, but I could get close. It's just, it would have to be a time I had more focus to do it.
Gotcha.
You know, and again, I'm trying to get back into being able to do that. I've had other stuff going on.
Yeah. Gotcha. And you kind of want to ease back into that kind of stuff. You don't want to like go from like 0 to 80, because then you'll lose your freaking mind. So yeah.
When you say focus, like what are you, for the listeners, like what are you getting at? Like what are you focusing on? Just the cycle of the temperature, making sure that you're doing
temperature cycling. It's making sure everything has been fed to the level that I think they're safe to be bred at.
Right.
It's really spending a lot more time in the reptile room, which I haven't for the last year and a half or so. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still go in there. It's just it hasn't been a huge life priority. So
it's dealing with babies.
It's kind of weird where it shifted to not being a huge life priority in a time when I had grown my collection to be bigger than it's ever been before, by virtue of, holdbacks reaching the right age to breed, and me kind of going balls to the wall with new stuff. Because I got a lot of new stuff since, the first episode we ever had, I think I had like 7 Bredls, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at your Instagram. I mean, you got ball pythons, you have colubrids, you have you had some rainbow boas and other types of pythons. Why the
joy of diversifying? And how many Bredli are you sitting on right now?
I don't know.
Oh, okay, cool.
So let me put it this way. I built 6 new adult cages that are going to be filled with things that have been growing up since my first clutch of Bredls. And I'm still going to have a few more tubs of subadults. Babies that are turning into subadults that are going to be moved into tubs. And if they don't move, they're eventually going to get new cages too. So
Casey's fallen into the Owen problems of I built these cages, stuff already inside them. It's like, oh crap. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So part of that too was just I had a little bit more disposable income to get into more projects. I had at the time more time. During the pandemic, you're like, hey, I've got nothing to do but play on Morph Market. So
yeah. Yeah, it's I feel that that's sort of why my season is off, is exactly that's why I was asking that question, is sort of I felt like going into the season I didn't do my normal preparations, getting the females, good solid meals and, good size, and they just have a look to them where you feel confident that they'll be able to produce a clutch of eggs and not die.
So my biggest issue was when I moved the new room that I moved them into, I was able to keep it a lot hotter.
Oh,
and okay. I did. And I was still, like, my females were good, but I was still feeding my males on the same diet I was doing in a colder room. And I had males lose some body condition to where I just didn't think they were ready to go. And then I put them with girls and they definitely weren't ready to go.
Wow.
So my issue was more along the lines of I was trying to adapt to a different room. Plus I was keeping more tropical stuff than I'd ever been used to. So I'm trying to figure out how to make it so that the ball pythons will eat and the Brettles pythons will breed. And it's a very, very hard juggling act to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
So I've changed it up where there's different rooms and stuff like that now. Because they're in an above ground garage apartment. So I've got 2 rooms plus a bathroom.
Okay.
And I was really dumb with the setup of that room at first, where the back room gets a lot colder than the front room, but I kept the tropical stuff in the back room and the warm stuff in the front, or the cold weather stuff in the front room.
Yeah, got it.
So I'm trying to switch all that over so that the stuff that needs to get colder in the winter can get colder in the winter, and the stuff that needs to stay warm can stay warmer.
Interesting. Did you ever get into like any of the other colder species of carpets, or are you just sticking with the Brettles?
I have inlands.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got young inlands that I'm raising up. I've got the mongrel inlands.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't you have some kind of morph inlands of some sort? It's albino,
I've
right?
got the mongrel inlands too.
Yeah.
That are 75% inland, possible head albino stuff, which that was kind of like when me and Billy Hunt went to Schaumburg, we've been talking about like fun different projects like that for a while. So we picked up a couple of different things. Like some of it was stuff that we're going to do together. Some of it was like, and we got a Todd's table and was like, hey, we've got this like wholesale lot of 75% inland possible head albinos for like $80 each. And I'm like, screw it. Let's just, I'm just going to get these, it's a 5.3 group. So.
Okay. Yeah. It's, say what you will about crossing that kind of stuff, but when you look at Australia's albino,
they're the best looking albino carpet. They just are.
They're killer, man. You've seen them, right, Owen?
The albino inlands?
Inlands, yeah.
I have seen them, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, there's something about it's almost they look like
they're pink.
Like sherbet.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's
pink
crazy.
and orange sherbet.
Yeah.
It's some sort of push pop monstrosity. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. That was weird. Okay.
The diamond fall off a thing?
No. The Aki did.
Oh. Every once in a while, I hear a rough scale python fall off a ledge, and I'm like, that's cool. Don't hurt yourself. So, yeah.
All right, cool. So, man, you've produced, so you're working with all the lines and all the different morphs of Brettles, and do you have a favorite?
Hypo Stonewash is my favorite.
That's your favorite? Yeah. Hard to beat.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the genetic stripe stuff for just because it's unique.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my favorite look. They're not really my favorite. It's not my favorite look because they kind of take away some of the color that I like.
Yeah.
The hypos are fantastic. The hypogenetic stripes, like they're perfectly lined and they have the color.
Mm-hmm.
So those are cool. But I mean, I think you can go on my Instagram and see a picture of a hypogenetic stripe next to a hypo stonewash, and the hypo stonewash still blows it away.
Oh yeah, 100%. I did see that picture, and so. I'm curious of your thoughts on this. Me, Owen, and Lucas were talking about this. I guess it was on the Patreon, maybe. I
think
can't
so.
remember. We're Carpets and Coffee, one of them. But Lucas had brought up that the idea that, and maybe he talked to you about this. I'm not sure, but that the hypo is actually what a normal Brettles would be.
No, he said that the
hypo's the wild type.
Right, and the lazy.
I mean, this was. I talked to Lucas about that, but this started from a conversation I was having with Travis Wyman.
Okay.
Where we're like, look, no one's this good at selective breeding. When you look at the hypobrettles, and then you look at these dark ones we have in captivity. Like, yes, I understand the argument of sunlight makes them a little bit more red, but I don't see how it would make the ones that have super dark, like half black, half red look, those really dark outlines on the back of the tail that our captive ones do, that you don't see pictures of wild ones having. And keep in mind, too, like there's not that many pictures of wild Brettles out there. There's only like 20 or 30 of them. Right. But none of them have that look, which makes me wonder if it's just the population that got collected for captivity has that look. And then everywhere else, they look like what we would call hypos or what we would call aphors.
I mean, I love the theory. And then, what is it? Ben Frame got that one that's got a ton of black on it. So it's like, well,
I talked to him about that at Daytona, I think.
Yeah, so is there potentially some melanin stuff going on with the lines that we have with LASIK line and stuff like that? Hence the darkness. So, I mean, I like the theory. It's cool.
Yeah.
I support it.
Because, I mean, you look at the hypo, what we're calling hypo-brettles, it does two things that are not related to each other, but we act like they are. The hypo will increase the amount of red and orange, which I think you could say that's done with selective breeding.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it decreases the amount of black outlines. And they are not connected to each other through a gene or anything like that. It's just, that's the look we kind of picked as the hypo. And you even get animals with pretty solid dark outlines sometimes when you breed two full-blooded hypo animals together.
Really?
Yeah, I've hatched out. It was kind of disappointed. The last clutch I did where I got full-blooded hypo stonewashed brettles, the one that was the most washed out, also like had the overall like dark outlines of a normal wild type, whatever you want to call it, brettles. It didn't have the hypo look, but it was like the most washed out stonewash I've ever made. Because you ever heard me complain about the stonewashes I make? They're not that like extreme. As a matter of fact, there's a few people around me that have stonewashed brettles that don't know they have them.
Oh shit!
Because I hatched out a couple of them where it's like, okay, they're clearly stonewashed. They're pink because like stonewashes are pink when they come out, but it's got like one little like washed out spot right on the back of its head, and that's it.
Interesting. Huh.
So there's a few people around me that were just like, hey, I just want a pet Brettles python. Would you sell me one? I'm like, yeah, here you go. You can. This one's going to look really nice when it's an adult.
So, right, I'm thinking that stonewash is like a form of piebald, like type of piebaldism.
Recessive.
It's incomplete dominant.
That's what I'm sorry. Yeah.
No. Like that's a controversial thing to say, but it's completely incomplete dominant. There's markers for it, and there's markers for it in lines whether or not they have hypo blood or not. Where
I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
I don't know if that's a secret, so I won't say it.
No, I mean, we've said it enough, and at this point, like, let's talk about it. Here are the markers for hypos. Here are the markers for stonewashed brettles in hets. If you flip them up on that first third of their body, they're going to have white spots on their belly scales. Usually, a brettles python has yellow stomachs.
Yeah.
With het stonewash, sometimes it's several of them, sometimes it's just one. Like it may be like half of one little scale, and sometimes it's like you got a patch of them. And that is in every line. It's not just the hypo line.
Okay.
It's in the LASIKs as well, because the stonewash popped up in the hypo and the LASIK.
Yep.
Independently.
Yes,
that happened. Yes.
Yes. Which, honestly, though, I do kind of. There's another theory that I've kind of played around with for a little while that I think the stonewash gene just came from the wild, where I think that like a percentage of brettles in the wild probably just have the stonewash gene in them because it's not that extreme a gene, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
It's something that if it was in the wild population, it's not going to hurt them. If anything, it may even help them a little bit.
Hide a little
they're
bit
just
better.
a little bit more of a broken pattern.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty subtle trait at the end of the day. So I kind of would bet that the stonewash thing is just a percentage of them in the wild have it.
Yeah, I could
wouldn't
see
be
that.
surprised. Yeah.
I haven't seen a picture of one, but there's only like 30 pictures of wild brettles out there that I've seen. There's not a commonly found animal.
And you just stumbled upon it.
Yeah, just walked right on it. Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I wasn't even trying to like be a jerk about that with my like, oh, there's just not a lot of pictures. But no, me and my buddy in 2018, we found one within about 24 hours of being in the Trofina Gorge, Alice Springs area.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Never found another one. We found one, and it was a big one.
Don't need another one. One's good. Check. Yeah.
So I got a question for you. What's your thoughts on the rarity of seeing them in the wild? Is it just where they're from is just hard to get to, or there's not a lot of people there, or not a lot of people going there, or is it, they're in these rock crevices, sort of like the Oenpelli python, right?
I think I'm going to say yes to all that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't know if they're like a densely populated snake. I don't know. There's no way of us knowing that right now. I mean, it'd be cool if somebody went out and kind of did like a density study on them, but
right.
They're from a very specialized environment where I don't really think they're out in the desert very often. For the most part, they're in the gorges. They're along the riverbanks.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're driving out there, it's very distinct, right? There's spinifex, there's rocks, and then you'll hit an area where it's not even a running river. It's a dry riverbed. And then there's the gum trees, the eucalyptus trees.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the gorges that give them a little bit more of a place to hide. And it's a lot warmer in those places, too. That was something we noticed, was when you get into the gorge at night, it's like a little heat pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Versus when you get out of it, it gets about room temperature when we were there. It gets a lot colder. But when we were there, it was like blazing hot during the day, and then like 65 is a low at night.
Wow.
But it's a little bit warmer inside those gorges.
I wonder, is that I'm thinking of like when we were in Texas with Justin and Phil and the group and whatnot. But I remember we were in that where were we? Big Bend National Park.
Yeah.
And when we went into the gorge and we were walking through the gorge, it was like 100 degrees at midnight. It was crazy.
Yep.
Huh. Interesting. I
But
never would have.
as far as the rarity of finding one in the wild, too, that place sucks. Like, it just does. So people don't really like go out there to go explore and go hiking around.
Right.
You do see a lot of pictures of bredlis in the water, which I don't know if that's just like the same idea of like shark attacks happen 30 feet close to the shore. Why is that? Because that's when they cross, right? That's where people and these animals just run into each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if it's that bredlis need some time to cool down and hang out around the water all the time, which also is a possibility because that's where most of the food is going to be.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Isn't there a picture of the one? I think it's in the book, right? Where there was a bredlis python in the water, and I think it was some type of bird, right? That came down.
There's a couple pictures of. There's a few pictures of bredlis pythons eating in the wild, and it's always a bird, and they're always in the water. There's a picture that was floated around for a little while of one that was eating a duck in the water. I don't think that one was in the book. And then I think the one in a book, he was eating like a magpie he was eating some kind of like bird of prey or a magpie or something, right?
Yeah, I think so. Huh.
And I think there's one more where it's eating like some kind of sparrow. So there's a few pictures, and it's always the bredlis hunting in the water, eating a bird that was coming up to drink or coming up to swim.
I don't know how you feel about this, right? But like, I found that when we go to Australia, I have to keep in the back of my mind. I was just talking about this the other day. It's like, yeah, you're getting a snapshot of what's happening in the wild, but it's just this brief little.
It's just a snapshot. Every time you find something in the wild, it's just a snapshot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you could try to make the best, with that information, but to come back and say, oh, well, carpets do this or bredlis do this or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you got stories like that of people like, hey, I went to America one time and it was New York City on Thanksgiving. It's like, it's not an accurate picture. Like, you came on a great time, but it's not an accurate picture of America.
Right. 100%.
Why would you do that?
Oh, interesting. So in just to flip it back real quick, you're saying how hot it was in these gorges, but when you found the diamond python in the tree, wasn't it like freezing cold?
Yeah, it was literally it was freezing cold, literally in the shadows at night. There's a little bit of frost, not in all the places, but in like some little crevices and stuff like that around there, you would see a little bit of frost. It was I think in my tent it was 42 when I woke up that morning.
Wow. Okay.
So
yeah. I did. such a weird python they are, man.
Mm-hmm.
So different, you know.
And it does get that cold where Bredls live too. In fact, I think it gets a little bit colder where Bredls live than it does where diamonds live. Because I've seen temperatures where it hits like 27, 28 Fahrenheit.
At night, right?
At night
and then,
in parts of Alice Springs. And it's always like 1 3-4 day period a year where it does that.
Right.
But then I talked to the people we found this around a town called Katoomba. And if you look up Katoomba online, you'll see videos of people like having snowball fights. It's not every year, but it's like every couple years. There's like a decent snowfall in the town of Katoomba. And it's like a huge deal where people go out and have snowball fights.
That's wild.
That's awesome.
Who would think that you'd be having a snowball fight in the middle of
Australia?
Alice Springs,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I was planning on going this February, and that didn't work out, so...
Yeah, we were going to do 2 trips this year, but oh my God, the prices of these flights are just insane. It's crazy. So, Alice, we were going to go to the Northern Territory just to do it again, but we decided to wait till 2024. But I would like to get down into that area for sure. I wonder how different it is from, further north, like Kakadu and stuff like that.
I don't know. I haven't been to Kakadu, but I can tell you there's no saltwater crocodiles in Alice Springs, so I guess there's that if you ever have to swim.
So that's the plus side, yeah.
There is that. That's good. What else? Did you find anything else python-wise when you were out there?
We found Stimson's pythons, or whatever they're taxonomically called now. We found a couple of those in Trofina Gorge, too.
Okay. Were they doing the same type of thing as the Bredls, hanging out by the water?
Oh, yeah. No, these guys hanging out by the water. There's a bunch of tree frogs around, a bunch of velvet geckos, a bunch of
cool.
like just small Australian geckos around. In fact, we found the Stimson's pythons inside the gorge. And we found 2, possibly 3, or it's we don't know if one's the same snake that we just saw kind of like crawl over a little bit a few hours later, if it was a different snake. And the Bredls was actually outside of the gorge, slithering alongside the road in a dry riverbed. And it was just out in the open, like 9 a.m. in the morning.
What was it like for you finding
the
Bredls?
Yeah.
So it was, I yelled at my buddy, like, you got to stop the Bredls. Like, I couldn't even spit it out the right way. And I ran out over to it. We looked at it. We looked at it because there's rules in Australia against touching stuff, right, guys?
Yes, there are. Yeah, you looked at it and then you helped it cross the street. Yeah.
Yes.
No, we didn't. It was not in the street. So we took a video of me looking at it and definitely not holding it.
No,
Right.
Of course not. Yeah. No one would do such a thing.
No, we would never do it. Wow, that's cool, man.
And the thing is, we were kind of traveling around. We had some plans for that day, so we couldn't just sit and watch it. My friend, who's like, he's super into hiking, super into going to check stuff out, but not necessarily like, hey, let's just sit for 2 hours and watch what this snake does.
Oh,
because you definitely would have did that.
Yes, yeah. That's what that's a little bit of a regret that I have, that I just be like, hey man, you just go check out the water hole and have fun, and I'm just gonna watch this thing for a bit. You come back later.
I'll be here. Yeah. I'll be in this area. Yeah, it's just.
I think I heard you say this before. I probably was snakes and stogies, I would imagine, but when you think of carpet pythons, with all of the research that I've been doing, like looking at more wild type carpet pythons and whatnot, they always are in the same spot, right? And we were just talking about a wild Bredls on Carpets and Coffee the other day, that picture that I found, and it's just like you say, they're in the trees of these water courses that are basically dried up, and they're just hanging out in the trees, and it's just interesting that they're basically, where there's trees, there's carpets.
Yeah,
carpet,
that's
trees,
really
water.
How it is in Australia. Where there's trees, there's carpet pythons.
Yeah.
Right.
With the exception of the way far south where it's just too cold for them.
Yeah.
But they're very much a specialized group of snakes where they have to have trees, they have to have birds.
Yeah.
Stuff like that to survive, which, you know, we can talk about how tough bredlis are, but it's kind of crazy where, honestly, I think Woma pythons are a little bit tougher because they are from the same place, but they're actually out in the desert. You know, bredlis live further south than Woma pythons live further south than bredlis pythons do, and they're actually out in the open where it really gets cold. Sure, they dig and they live in burrows and stuff like that, but they're actually out where there's no water. Like, there's nothing out there.
Yeah.
More exposed.
They also go into trees.
Yeah.
Lucas sent us some pictures of womas and trees, and you're just like, what?
Who put that animal up there? It's like, no, it went up there itself. Bullshit.
Yeah, you're right. They are a tough snake. It's probably why they're so good in captivity. You know, I mean, they're tough as nails.
That's one thing I have not kept. I don't know why. I
Really?
love Woma pythons. They're one of the prettiest snakes in the world to me.
Really?
I've got black-headed pythons. I've got Angolans, both of which I feel like are kind of in that same wheelhouse, the bredlis, but I've never had a Woma python.
Huh. You got to change that, man. Especially now that Lucas
but I'm
is
also
about to.
I'm a little overwhelmed with what I got. So if somebody out here wants to buy some clown ball pythons and possibly some northern blue tongue skinks from me, please hit me up so I can get Woma pythons.
Yeah, sorry, buddy. No.
So wait, let's talk about the ball pythons first. What made you get into ball pythons? What made you pull that trigger?
This is kind of conversations me and Billy were having, because me and Billy, when we go to Daytona, there's always our friends who do the ball python stuff, and they're like, "Hey, you got to get into these. They're awesome. You know, we got all these color mutations." And, you know, I'm not going to lie too. There's also the whole, hey, me and Billy are super excited. We made $3,000 between both of us. And the ball python guy next to us is like, that was an okay show. I made $34,000.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Where we're having to explain to people at the shows, like, hey, this is a carpet python. They're not venomous. They're from Australia.
Yeah.
Like, you got to give the whole, like, this is what it is speech to people. And sometimes people look at our table and be like, I don't know what that is. Tell me about it for 4 hours, and then I'm going to walk away.
Go buy a leopard.
So there's a little part of us that's like, you know, we need something that, like, kind of helps pay for this table a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
But I also worked over at Canova for a bit. In fact, I may actually be going over there on Thursday, depending on what they call up. I'm not employed. I'm not employed with them right now. If they need help, I'm good to help out with them. But
gotcha. And he's just on a whole nother level, man.
Yeah,
I can't imagine what it's like seeing his collection.
It's very hard to walk into that place and not gain an appreciation for ball pythons.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's cool too, because, you know, with what, you know, the rare python stuff, when you make something that looks nothing like something else, you're making a hybrid, right? Versus this, where it's like, okay, I'll mix this yellow snake with this black snake, and they're going to breed the exact same way. I'm going to have kind of a decent idea of what the babies are going to look like, and then there's kind of that whole, like, bio-gambling aspect to it. Where, you know, it's kind of like playing a slot machine, but it's also breeding snakes, where you're like, I don't really know what's coming out of this, and it's going to be kind of cool.
It's like playing poker on a slot machine. What?
I often wonder why, like, you know, like if you look at the python, just the python hobby, right? You have the ball pythons that are like the majority of it, and then you have the other stuff that's sort of rare. There's stuff that's sort of teeters more towards the ball pythons, and then stuff that's, you know, far away from it. What do you think? Like, what do you guys think that it is that people just don't want to, like, if somehow you, you know, start to what you're saying, right? If you're going to do this as a business, it only makes sense, right? If you're going to be at a show, right? You're going to the show, you're doing all this stuff to sort of put yourself, you know, to have success at a show. Well, you kind of have to do what people want, not necessarily what you want, you know?
Right.
And so what do you think that is that, like, I'll just say the Morelia community, to make it easy, like, why do you think that there's such a sellout type of, I don't even know if that's the right word, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
So I've got a couple thoughts on that.
Okay.
The first is a conversation me and Billy have had with Justin Smith, where just to be like, I don't like ball pythons. But then sometimes they'll send us a picture and be like, I like this ball python. It's kind of cool looking. And we're like, dude, you're a snake guy. You are allowed to like snakes.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to justify liking something
to
yourself. And then another one, too, comes down to, honestly, the ball python is a completely different hobby. It is a separate hobby from mainstream reptile, like the off-the-wall reptile keeping. It's different.
Yeah.
And honestly, the keeping's different, too. Like, there's been a decent learning curve for me trying to learn how to do ball pythons because the first snakes I ever bred were Bredli's pythons. You know,
you started at level A. You started up here, and now you gotta.
But honestly, like the ball pythons have been kind of hard for me.
How so?
Okay, first of all, like pythons, there's kind of like two camps with there's three camps with pythons. You got the giant ones, you got the slug ones, and then you got the ropey ones. So I know the ropey ones, right? But you got these sluggy ones that they need humidity. They need constant fresh water. They're really picky on food. But once you figure that out, they're the easiest snakes in the world to breed. Like, you just throw them together, and no matter what, they'll kind of just figure it out on their own. But versus the ropey ones, where there's a little bit of a trick to get them to breed, but they're so much hardier once they've actually come out. Like, even the eggs on ball pythons are so prone to drying out compared to carpet eggs.
Really?
Because they're so big. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you look at a baby ball python, it's like a little water balloon. So you've got to make sure that they're drinking something because they get emaciated so fast. Wow. And it's not even like you're not giving them water. It's just they couldn't find the water you gave them or they didn't like the water you gave them.
I heard something about how their water bowls need to be almost like they can't be like tall ceramics or something like that. They have to be low so that they can almost find it by accident sometimes.
It's kind of like that. And then it's also like if they aren't getting as much water from drinking, they need to eat more. And sometimes it's hard when they're a little bit picky on what they want to eat.
Got it.
So that's been a big problem with me is that, like, a baby Bredli's can go a while without eating. A baby ball python cannot. You know?
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Which again, that may just be the fact that, like, my room was so geared towards Bredlis that when I put something that is so not a Bredlis into it, I had problems.
I had the same problems, man. I had the same struggles. You know, I thought that, like, you know, it's a python, it's a python, it's a python.
And that is not true.
No.
Which
not
I'm
at
sure
all.
that if we had been, like, experienced short-tail keepers going over to the ball pythons or vice versa, it'd be easy because they're kind of the same.
Yes.
They're the same basic idea. You know, it's a water balloony sluggy snake that stays on the ground and needs a lot more water and a lot more humidity.
Yeah, I struggled with them too. I couldn't keep them. They just didn't work in my room, you know. But because even when I go to like Matt Minatola's place, his room just feels a lot. You can feel the humidity. You can feel the heat. You know,
you need a room that's very stable and has a lot better humidity to keep the sluggy ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus the carpet python stuff and similar things to carpet pythons. I'm sure like dwarf retics are the same way and stuff like that, where you can have a lot more range than the other ones can have.
Right.
A little bit more forgiving. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If it drops down a little bit or it gets a little cold, you know, it's going to be no big deal. But
my stuff got cold this year, where I'm sure you guys had this too, where like it was the first couple weeks of the year where it was like -9 in Georgia, which is like unheard of for like a week. It killed the bushes in my front yard. It was so cold.
Wow. That's crazy.
We didn't get that. Like normally we're good for like 1 or 2 really big snowstorms that help kind of push my guys over the edge. We had nothing. I bought like bulk rock salt getting ready for nothing. Didn't even use it, sitting in my shed. So it's like I'm curious.
It didn't snow those days. It just got
really
cold for like a week.
I'm just curious to see what would happen, whether or not that affects my breeding season, because usually you kind of rely on the storms to kind of push you through and kind of get the males jazzed up a little bit. So I'm curious to see what happens with that.
So what else did you struggle with when it came to ball pythons?
I mean, that's really the biggest things about it is
the
babies are you kind of have to treat the babies like they're just little water balloons that need to just constantly be replenished. Really, they're almost like little sponges, right? Mm-hmm. And if they don't have food and water coming in, they crash so fast compared to a carpet python baby. Which, that's not, now that I know that, that's not too big, but at first I would like open the tub and be like, you shouldn't look this bad for like the last time I fed you. I fed you like a week and a half ago. Why do you look like you're dying?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think of I think of all the, like when I was a kid, all the wild ball pythons that I kept, and yeah, it was just a roll of the dice. They were tough to keep, man. They were like, you know, especially back then because there was no ball python hobby. I found it in.
I mean, not to say they're hard or bad or anything. Like, I've really enjoyed keeping them. Like, it's that learning curve of going from the ropey snakes to the sluggy snakes has been hard. Like, they're stupid easy to breed, though. I mean, there's a reason why people build their entire businesses on these things. Is the morphs are fun. I don't care what anybody says. Like, morphs are really cool with these guys. And it's cool to be able to throw two things together, look at the calculator or the Punnett square that you make and be like, I don't know what's coming out of here because there's 140 different
options,
possibilities.
Yeah. I was on. Me and I can't remember the guy's name, but we were Warfels Morphs, and he had us on because he recently got into carpet pythons, but he's basically a ball python person. He's from Pennsylvania and whatever. And anyway, he was talking about how. I guess there was a meme going around or something, and it was like that they were more or less saying like they don't want normals. And I was like, you know, that's so different than what we're used to.
Oh, it's completely different.
It's just a whole different type of like thinking.
Which is why I say it's a different hobby. It is. They're very closely related, but it's not the same hobby.
Yeah, it seems like to me, like from what I get from having it was a good conversation. It was eye-opening for me because I was able to talk to them and have a conversation, not a back and forth fight type of thing or whatever, but like have a conversation where you actually like bring up topics and you get a better understanding. But it seems to me like, number one, I get a lot from them that it's like people that want to start their own business type of deal, right? You know, that seems to be like in that mindset somewhere. It's like setting up a business and I want to do this and I want to do this for full time type of deal. But then, like you said, it's the whole morph thing. And like I was trying to explain to him, like, you guys just put two ball pythons together and it is what it is. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about nothing. You don't have to worry about crosses and this and that and all this other shit that you know, like other pythons, they have retics kind of fall into the same type of thing, short tail, stuff like that. But you just put them together and it is what it is. And you get these amazing, you know, patterns and colors. And I just think about like what it was in the reptile radio days when they were talking about bumblebees. And now you look at what Kabilka's doing, and it's like, holy shit, man. Like, if you could go back to the past and know what's going to come, like, holy shit. Some of the shit that he's doing is just nuts.
But it's also super confusing, too, where, like, me and Don Patterson trade stuff back and forth a good bit, and he sent me some of his, like, higher-end clown ball python stuff for me to sell. We don't know what some of these things are. We've got a good idea, but there's also the, like, when you start getting into like 5 gene on top of a recessive,
right?
And some of them kind of cancel each other out a little bit. You're like, I know that's a pastel, or I know that's a lesser. Does it have spot nose? I have no idea. And then I'll talk to like Jeremy Turgeon, be like, hey man, has this got spot nose and yellow belly? He's like, oh, absolutely. How can you not see that?
Yeah,
So. With those type of things, how does that get like? How do you sell that?
Yeah.
So a lot of it is you just have to be upfront with people. Like, hey, look, this is our best guess. I can tell you what the parents were. I can tell you what 4 people who know a lot more than me said they were. Right. I can point out why they think that is. And it's honestly like sometimes you may be selling a gene for free, which is better than selling a gene for a gene that's not there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, making them pay.
And again,
for
that's kind of what it comes down to. The ball python market is a separate hobby than the rare python market.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only one where they established an entire captive breeding of a type of rodent because the snake kind of liked it a little bit more. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, the African soft.
Yeah, we're not establishing Australian-based rodents for the carpet python. So yeah,
I will say though, because I have been trying, that's been a major focus for me lately. Where I say I haven't been focusing on my reptiles, I'm focusing on rodents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where I've been trying to learn how to breed mice and rats. African soft furs are not legal in Georgia.
Okay.
So I actually drove to South Carolina on Saturday so that I could try to help Justin Smith get some African soft furs going over at his place where they would be legal.
Yeah.
So we bought a colony, went down there.
I've heard
went over to Buford.
I've heard they're absolutely vicious.
Nice.
They're not.
Oh, okay. Okay.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. When I was driving that group from where we picked them up from, they did eat one, but I've seen that with rats too.
I would say not vicious to humans, vicious to each other.
Yeah, there is, from what I've read, there is a major. They're almost like
teddy bear hamsters,
like meerkats almost.
Okay.
Have you ever heard when you if you introduce a new one into an established group, they will kill it.
Yes.
Really?
But if they are raised together, and again, this is breeding stuff,
Right.
But you can maybe take out a young female and put it into a new group, but they're very hierarchical too. However you say that word.
Right.
Yeah.
Where there's a dominant female, her 2 or 3 subordinates, and then you've got a couple helpers, and then 1 or 2 males, and that's it.
Wow. Okay.
But other than that, man, they don't smell don't smell like rats do. They have more babies. They don't get as big as rats. So,
yeah.
Honestly, I wish they were illegal here because they're kind of, if you know what you're doing, it kind of sounds like they're the best rodents. And they take a lot longer to grow. So for something like carpet pythons, where when you've got a clutch of carpets, you need fuzzy and hopper sizes for a long time. It's perfect because you got something that kind of comes out and then it gets to fuzzy or hopper size and kind of stays there for a while.
Yeah, I keep having to. I have 2 boxes of mice right now, trios in each, and I keep having to pull and dispatch the fuzzies because everything now that I have from 2022 is on hoppers and small mice, but now I'm just building up my freezer for when the babies start hatching this year. So. And I you can ask Eric, I resisted breeding mice forever. He was like, you should do it. It's easy. You know how to do it. I'm like, I don't want to. But 1 box of mice, I don't have to buy pinkies anymore. 2 boxes of mice.
It's kind of fun. I do think breeding rodents is on a small scale because I've done it on a big scale where I helped
big scale.
Kavilka's place on his full industrial massive scale.
Right.
Where frankly, it's the worst job in the world. I would fully rank being a large scale rodent worker. It maybe short of certain military jobs where you're actually having to fight.
Right.
But,
your life is
as
in
far
danger.
as just disgust and hard work, there are a few jobs that are worse than being a day in day out rodent tub cleaner.
Wow.
Yeah, I did it for years, but I did that in a laboratory setting at the University of Pennsylvania. So we had industrial sized cage cleaners that you could wheel in an entire car into. It's so doing that on a small scale without that kind of stuff, I can only imagine it just sucked. So
yeah, I mean it's fun. It's fun on a very small scale. In other words, where you're I've got my 3 colonies of rats and then 7 colonies of mice. That's kind of fun.
And it's not expensive, especially because you can we went and we got shavings at Tractor Supply. And I think we did that several months ago. And I still have not worked through half of the bag just because it's and every week I just dump out the cage, put in new shavings, a couple of shredded pieces of paper, and then rodent food, a bulk bag at the reptile show cost me $30. And that it takes them forever to go through that stuff. So it's not that bad.
Yeah. And I even looked out here where there's a specialty feed shop 20 minutes away, where I can buy rat blocks.
Yeah, rodent block
there.
is in a pinch. Rodent block at Walmart in a box is $2.
Or not even rodent block. It's not the Missouri stuff, because I actually think the Missouri stuff is best, but it's like one of those other like professional lab grade rodent pellet brands.
Yeah,
and I can just buy it at the feed shop. I don't have to like custom order it or anything. If I need it that afternoon, I just drive down the road and pick it up. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've I've fought not well. I've talked to Owen about like we should have our own thing, kind of like what Justin's doing, and I guess Jake's involved with him too. Gets his rodents from him, I suppose. But we'd
have to hire somebody. I'd kill no. We'd have to hire somebody to do the cleaning. I would not do it. Yeah, I can set it up, but I can't do it.
Yeah, I don't know. But, I mean, the price of rodents anymore is just crazy.
Astronomical, yeah.
Which is why I focus so hard on trying to get the rats going.
Yeah.
Right.
And honestly, like, I think getting the rats going ironically made it so that I put less focus on the snakes when I would go into the snake garage. Because I was focusing more on the rodents. So me trying to make enough food to feed the snakes made it so I'm not making as many snakes.
Yeah.
But it's also like the learning curve of trying how to do those guys. You know, once I kind of have figured them out a little bit better, I think that'll be, back to business as usual.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob was trying to convince me to do like a level of like a rodent, like just one level or two levels or something, just something that you sort of have. Sort of, I guess, like what you're doing, Owen. Just
dude,
supplementation to what you're. What you got going
I
on.
mean, it was so easy this year when I had things that are on. You also got to understand, I have so many things that are on such small food, like rhino babies. When they're out, you want like fresh. You want pinkies. You want like fresh pinkies. You don't want to go get a bag of pinkies and then realize that they're too big for your rhinos. Because then what the hell are you going to do with this? Like, I can't feed them the carpets. They come out on fuzzy. So. It kind of helps to be able to get there. But I find with one male to three females, you can pull kind of one litter early, and those are the pinkies, and then you can kind of give the other two a little bit to grow up, and you can pull them as the fuzzies, and then you even let the last one get all the way to hopper. And by the time you pull the hoppers, we got more pinkies hitting the ground. So it's like it just kind of keeps going.
Right.
So,
which that's the hardest part about getting rodents going is you got to not feed the first like 2 generations of them.
Yeah.
So you can raise them up to like adult mouse size and then feed them off.
Right.
That's something I ran into when I first started was like, I've got all the perfect like little fuzzy sizes I need.
Yep.
But I don't have the adults. But I kept feeding off the fuzzies and not letting them grow to adulthood like I should have.
Right.
Versus like letting your colony mature a little bit where you can kind of get all sizes.
Yeah, I'm at that point now where I am on my second gen because I started with the trio, and my 2 females bred to the point where you saw a decline with what they would produce. Also, they started not looking so good, so I fed them off, and then the male impregnated 4 females and then died. So now out of that group, I've raised some boys. So I have one cage that's got my breeding females and one juvenile male that is growing up. And then I have 3 other boys set aside because I'm going to get another bin and get that set with some more girls. So, but it's relatively easy. It really is. You just got to, I had to brush up on my
sexing. When you're used to snakes where, you get one shot a year to get baby snakes.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you have a deep freezer, you just keep pumping out baby pinkies, fuzzies. Throw them in. You will feed them eventually. Just throw them in the freezer. Just keep building up what you got. So.
I've been having fun with that though, where I'll get the albino, like the cheap feeder albino females, and then like I'll go through the fancy mouse section for the boys and try to get like the craziest looking male I can do, just to see what comes out. So I've made a bunch of like tricolored mice. I haven't made no black one yet because I haven't been able to find an all black boy, but I really want to see like how that works out. So it's been kind of fun in that way of being like, let me see what this like insane like spotted brown beige black mouse will put to the albinos and just see what comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, that's cool. That's cool.
So
yeah,
honestly, I've had more fun breeding rodents than I thought I would.
Yeah, it seems like more and more people are doing it. You know, it's probably because of the price. You know, especially if you have a big collection. Like, holy shit!
I also liked it because then I have one super caramel male that is stuck on live, but then it's like every time I get a litter up to like fuzzy hopper size, I throw one to him before I freeze off all the rest. And what I would do in that case is I would buy fuzzies at every show and feed the live feeders out of that. And it would take them much longer to kind of grow and progress. Now he's right on pace with everybody else.
Is the ball pythons, are you experiencing where they won't eat frozen thawed, so you have to feed them live? Is that another benefit of?
Yes. Short answer, yes. Very much so. But I've also noticed the ones that Dawn sends me, because Dawn like goes through the painstaking process of let's get these things eating frozen thawed, and they'll eat whatever I put into their enclosure.
Okay.
Right.
It's ones that I produce for myself that I've been, I've got a live colony going, so I've never tried to feed them frozen thawed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Every once in a while, you'll get one that'll take it no problem, but I think there's a training process to like teach them to recognize frozen thawed as food versus something they're afraid of. Because that's another like huge learning curve. Teaching ball pythons how to eat because they're so defensive.
Right.
Like a carpet python baby, you can train them to eat by like hitting their sides or like getting them to hang down and then just like keep flopping a hot rat at them until they bite it and wrap it up.
Right.
You can't do that with a ball python. You can't scare a ball python into biting and then have it eat. Which, like, that's the way I teach baby carpet pythons how to eat. Is you
right,
wrap them around and then they'll bite and wrap, and the thing that was hitting them stops hitting them, so they kind of learn, oh, I can do that and I get food. You cannot do that with a ball python.
Okay.
So what's the approach with the ball python?
Life is the only thing I've been able to figure out. Is just
live. Okay.
And I mean, there's other tricks too. Like a lot of people go by the paper bag trick. I haven't tried it yet, but so many people swear by it. There has to be something to it.
Yeah, a lot of people
too, what some of those guys will do is they'll get live and then offer the live by like hanging it from tongs and then kind of like slowly teach them, okay, food comes from up and it looks like this when it's hanging. So then you teach them, okay, this dead one that's covered in water is also food, and I shouldn't like ball up and be afraid of it.
Yeah, there goes another example of student of the serpent type of deal, because ball python's defense mechanism is to hide, whereas a carpet is sort of to strike, or
right,
defensive,
which is so funny because this is like the exact opposite conversation most people who are into this like, oh, I know how to do ball pythons. It's getting these stupid carpet pythons to eat because they don't want to.
Yeah, no shit. Wow, that's crazy.
And I'm sure somebody that knows about ball pythons is going to listen to this and be like, "Are you guys stupid?"
Do it. Yeah,
like,
just do this. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I've always I know that there's bad people in all parts of the hobby, but just in general, like the thing that always impressed me with the ball python part of the world, of the reptile world, is that they know their reptile, because it's in their benefit to sort of know. I don't think they know it like it's not the same though as like say the rare python,
like the scrub guys. Like how the scrub guys know scrub pythons versus the ball python guys know ball python. It's different.
Yeah, it's like they're like into the natural history, and it's sort of like almost like it paints you into a box, so to speak, where it seems like the ball python world is just like
it's
they
more
just try shit.
Yeah.
It's like industrialized at this point.
Right.
I cringe at the word the industry whenever we talk about the reptile keeping world. Like that makes me like gag when I hear people say it. I think the ball python thing is actually kind of an industry though.
I think it has to be at this point,
Yeah, and it just never seems to even, I don't know, it seemed like a lot of the guys were talking about doom and gloom this past
because things weren't flying off the shelves. Yeah.
year, but I think it's just because of COVID. Now people are sort of, they're not on their computer. You know what I mean? It's just they're not, and they don't have extra money, and money is tight, and it's just the cycle of how this goes. But so many people were like, the ball python market is
the crash is what I kept hearing. Yeah,
the bubble has burst.
The bubble has
and
burst.
I've been hearing that since
I mean, that's in
2005.
2006, and I don't know if you heard it before that. But I think it was Kavilka posted up something of the ball python crash is upon us, and it was like 2000, like the year 2000.
Any minute
in
now.
June. Which,
Any
I don't know.
minute now.
It may crash. I mean, I got into it, who knows? Maybe that was like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
Was I finally was like, you know what? Screw this. You guys look like you're having fun, and I want to try it out. And like that's what kills it. So
yeah. Have you met people that you probably wouldn't have come across by doing that, and it has, maybe opened up your?
Honestly, not really.
No. Okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I met Justin Kavilka, and like I was behind their table for a little while at Arlington, which was kind of cool. But that was like kind of weird, where I felt like, for that one like little bit of time I helped out behind the table, I kind of felt like I was more of a member of an entourage than I was like a person. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where,
yeah.
like,
100%.
Yeah.
And then I go talk to the, Austin Warwick, Michael Pinnell, Jason Brumley. There were a couple other people. I went out to dinner with them that night, and that was a lot cooler to me than, trying to take pictures of people with Kavilka.
Right.
Not that wasn't like a bad, like I'm not crapping on that or anything. I'm just like,
yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
I feel like I've met way more community from the rare python and colubrid people too, because a lot of my friends in the reptile world are colubrid people at this point. Like,
yeah, it seems like there was a huge shift.
Yeah, that's probably my fault. Yeah,
even my co-host. Well, the THP guys too. Justin. He sort of, turned that ship. Sort of. I guess Jake too, right?
Yeah.
I do have Bear Eye because of him. Yeah.
Which I think that group was always there, but what the Herpiculture Network guys did was they kind of merged like the slightly obscure colubrid guys in with the slightly obscure python guys, and kind of and Phelan did too.
Yeah.
Which we're acting like this was like ancient history. This is a couple years ago, and honestly, like I feel like there's always been like. Balin's done some pretty like obscure rat snakey type stuff too, hasn't he? Or am I thinking of somebody else?
Pyros.
No,
I think And
he was big time in the colubrid stuff.
He used to have a ton of stuff, and then he kind of just didn't really do it too much. And now he kind of does it, but he does it kind of like down low. Kind of all of a sudden he'll appear and he'll have a bunch of stuff. His one friend.
Does hognose, right?
Chris does. He does hognose, but Chris does a lot of the, like my black rat snakes are from Chris, and he does Applegates. He has a bunch of other stuff like that too. So we were geeking out on colubrids the last time I vended a show with Balin. So yeah.
And corn snakes seem to kind of have the same thing with ball pythons, where what's cool about them is you can take this weird stripy red one and this purple one and throw them together, and you're not going to have an army of people upset with you for doing it.
Yeah, right. That is true. Yeah.
And you kind of know what's going on a little bit, but like corn snakes are so much older than ball pythons, where like everything's het for something. So you're always going to have this like, I know exactly what's coming out from this pairing. Oh no, they're also het tessera. I don't know tesseras. I'm not allowed to keep corn snakes, so I don't actually know corn snakes. I know tessera because they look cool and they're stripy. But
yeah, I had that where it's like I crossed a snow where it was supposed to be a het snow, and then I got like white ones gray ones and red and white ones, and I'm like, what the hell? Like it was just supposed to be white ones. So yeah,
and that seems to happen with everybody who does corn snakes. Is like you get what you're expecting, and then like one mystery, and then you got to figure out what that one mystery thing is.
Yeah, like where did this come from? What is it? So yeah, like they're anneries or something like that, and it's just because those were the ingredients to making snow and some of the other stuff that were in there. So yeah.
Yeah, I often wonder if the carpet python world will get to that point where we're just sort of like.
I don't think we're letting it because we're not. We don't let people do. We don't. We frown upon experimentation.
Yeah, I don't know. It's always a debate that I can see both sides of it, but so. I know we've sort of touched on this, right? But now we're going to move into, we're gonna hit it. Like, so what's your thoughts on the? So, I was kind of bummed out, man, with the we had
Warren
the NPR.
just ripped my heart out. Is that what you're about to say?
Hell?
Yeah.
He's
really bummed out at that.
Public enemy number one on this radio show right now. God
No,
damn
I can't be mad about that. Like
no, yeah.
I can't, but I
am.
am.
The people listening that didn't know. Warren basically dropped a bomb in one of the Morelia Python radio chats that, genetically speaking, all the Lyons-Brettles pythons are indistinguishable from each other. Which, for somebody like me, who I tried so hard to get unrelated lines, like I'd go pick up different ones from different people, because there's only supposed to be 4, possibly 5 in the U.S. now that are unrelated.
Right.
And, it turns out that's not true. So they're all related. And I had to, that's not going to matter to anybody, but, to me, that was like a moment where I was like, I gotta go take a shower or something. I gotta think about my life, man. Like, I put so much effort into this, so much mental space. And then at the end of the day, though, you can believe a story or you can believe a DNA test.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can have your belief system that is based on a story that you really, really liked. But if somebody comes in with the DNA test that completely discredits everything you thought you wanted to happen, you gotta play with the DNA test.
How far are you willing to deny science? Okay, how far are you willing to go?
It sucked, it hurt, but I can't argue with it, so I'm not going to.
I kind of feel like the diamond pythons are the same.
I would agree.
The diamond pythons are the same.
They have to be.
Yeah.
Stardust diamonds was a recessive trait, and it's popped up in multiple unrelated lines.
Right.
So, then why is there so much negativity about crossing diamonds of different lines, like San Diego Zoo line and all that other stuff?
Well, okay, that comes down to the question of purity in the diamonds. The idea that Cypress Creek possibly has a question mark. Some of the guys that are big into diamonds say they definitely have a question mark. Some say they don't. And diamond guys want their diamonds to be
diamonds,
pure.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
But diamonds are another one of those species where there's a lot of stories about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
This line comes from this zoo and we have paperwork and it traces back to the paperwork.
Yeah, but who wrote the paperwork?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's they're all throwing this gene that all kind of looks the same that no one in Australia has ever seen before. It's like the hypo and it's like the Stonewash thing popping up in the LASIK line and the hypo line in Brettles.
Right.
It's because they're related.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the simplest answer is normally the correct one. So either it's a magical cosmic octopus that appeared in these two things, or they're related, and it's simple.
I think it's very similar probably to what we all felt when Warren dropped that bomb, right? It's like we've put so much time and effort into having all these different lines and bloodlines and trying to make sure that we've done our due diligence to find animals from people with, that can trace it back as far as it can go back, and, all of these things that we've done. And then to find out that that's all just for nothing, and they're just basically all the same thing. And I don't know.
He worded it was so funny too, where I was like, so I kind of did all this work for like 10 years for nothing. He's like, yep. Not even like you did your best. Just, yep.
No,
he kind of for nothing.
He ripped that Band-Aid off fast.
It's kind of like,
which I appreciate,
Yeah.
It's kind of like almost like the 60-year-old guy that's been hunting for Bigfoot all his life and hasn't found, you know what I mean?
The monkey doesn't exist.
I know, but I'm saying, Owen, that
small tangent. No. Bigfoot's real. Bigfoot is real.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is. Bigfoot's a grizzly bear. Bigfoot is a grizzly bear or a black bear.
All right. Okay.
The Bigfoot people have never been more upset in their lives about being right. Yes, North America has multiple large, hairy animals that stand on two legs. They're called bears, and they're way scarier than any monkey man. Okay?
That is true. I would be more terrified being face-to-face with a grizzly bear than I would be some sort of monkey creature.
Yes. So those guys, they're right. There is a large, hairy animal that stands on two legs with giant feet in the North American woods.
But imagine going all your life, going out in the woods, being uncomfortable, cold, this and that, because you're going to be the person that finally snaps a picture to find out that it's not.
Yeah. Why do you think they're making these calls and they're like, damn it, it's another bear. I saw two grizzly bears today, but I haven't seen a Bigfoot. What's going on here?
Why do I keep getting so many bears?
Yeah.
I bait my traps and all I get is bears.
Yeah, so I think like the diamond python community, has always been like the more elite of the carpet python world, and sort of like they're on another level because they're not crossing things, and they've but it's not true. It's just not true. So they just hold on to that.
And okay, another bomb. Everything that's special about diamond pythons, bredlis do it better.
How so? What do you mean?
Wow.
I mean, the cold tolerance, the like specialized habitat, all that stuff. They're just not black and yellow.
Yeah, that's really the only difference. Yeah.
Which, I mean, don't get me wrong. The most excited I have ever been to find a snake was a diamond python, because that was my first wild python.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Was a diamond python.
Mm-hmm. So was it more the fact that it was a python, or
it's
was it
more
the fact that it was
I'm in Australia and found my first wild python?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, no matter what it was, like I was literally like, and I mean, there's a story to that one too, where we met people on the trail walking up because we were hiking. We didn't find this thing on the road.
Right.
And the guys were like, and I think they were from Europe, or they didn't sound Australian to me. It sounded like German, which I'm not going to do a German accent, but like, I know you got to be careful. There's a black snake on a log out here. And they showed us a picture, and I'm like,
where was this animal?
Yeah, I did. I think I literally even told this couple, like, show me exactly where it is. I will pay you money to show me which log this was on.
Yeah.
We will take you there.
So the most excited I've ever been in my life to see a snake was a wild diamond python.
Yeah.
So I like them. I like them a lot. I had a group of them for a little while that I ended up selling to Don.
Okay.
So I've had diamonds here, and they're awesome snakes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, let's be real here, too. I'm going to get an email about this one. I guarantee it.
Do it.
The reason why diamonds are still so expensive is because every time someone drops the price, you just say they're impure, so you can hold on to your monopoly and just keep your price high.
I agree with that.
Because a whole big part of the diamond python thing is how much was it for sale? $600? That wasn't pure.
That wasn't pure. Yep.
So
that's not a diamond.
You got this like built-in insurance to keep your snakes over $1,200 for all eternity. Because the second somebody starts dropping their stuff, you just say, "Oh yeah, no, those aren't pure." Yeah. Mine are pure though.
You find the holes.
There's probably are, but they're the same line everybody else has.
Yeah.
Right. But that's even the thing, man. When you look at diamonds in the wild, right? So here's an example, right? When we were at Scott and Ty's place, they were showing me diamond pythons, and they have legit locality diamond pythons. And
GPS location of where they were found. No.
I think that if you were to take those same snakes and you were to put them on Morph Market for sale, let's say, I think you would have the diamond python community pull their pitchforks out and come for you and tell you that that's not pure.
I think Scott should.
I would almost promise that that's what would happen.
Yes, that would happen. But there's also okay. I sent this to the picture in a group. I sent this picture to the Morelia Python group a while back. It was probably a year or two ago, so we're never going to find it again.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it was a diamond jungle cross in Europe.
Uh-huh.
And this thing, like, it looked like a snake somebody in New South Wales would pull out of their garage.
Okay.
Like,
Right.
It had that, like, jungle diamond, whatever, the rainforest diamond, what do they call those things? Where they're, like, slowly starting to turn into coastals.
Yeah.
It had that look.
Right.
Like, it had that, like, dark gold. Because carpet pythons in the wild, I guess, where they're exposed to sun, have more of a gold color than our, like, pale yellows.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And this animal had that. Like, it had the tipping. It had a little bit of a bigger pattern. It had that gold color. It looked like a snake. Somebody in New South Wales would say, this thing's been in my chicken coop, and it's eating my hens.
Right.
It had that look. And no one cares about it because it's not pure. But I'm like, that looks like what they look like, though. Like, that has the pure look.
It's crazy.
It looks like one.
It's fucking crazy, man. It drives me nuts. I'm like, wait a minute.
I posted in the group, and Scott agreed. Scott was like, yeah, no, that looks like what we pull out of, like, people's roofs.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway from me with seeing, especially when we were in Queensland and we saw like a whole bunch of different what would be coastal carpets, right? Mm-hmm. They all look different. Like they all look different. There was nothing about it that you could say, oh, okay, they kind of look like this. And then, when we found it in the first trip, a coastal, it looked more like the jungle than the jungles we saw. And the gelatin jungles look like citrus tiger sibs. And I'm like, oh my God. My whole boom,
Nothing makes sense anymore.
This doesn't make sense. So the idea that people in America that have never probably even Googled a wild carpet python are going to tell you that it's just absurd to me, man. It's just crazy. So that being said,
there are groups of one of the biggest problems in the Morelia world too is if something doesn't look right, you'll literally get these guys that they'll email and be like, that's not what that is.
Right.
I'll tell you what it is because I know what it is. That kind of bullshit.
That was that happened to me when I was selling Jags for like my second season with the breeding. Somebody emailed me saying I didn't know what I had because they know what a Jaguar is and that's not a Jaguar. And my reply included the entire family tree that I had compiled of all the animals, including the Jags. And I'm like, I think I know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, they will jump down your throat if they think it's wrong. And it's never any of the big breeders. It's always some smaller kind of off to the side person. I
don't get those anymore. So
no, they've stopped trying to. They stopped trying to email you. Yeah,
I'm kind of glad.
I'm really like. I've never had that because Bredl's hybrids have a look.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I've only tried to sell crossed carpet pythons like twice ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Where, it does kind of suck where you look at Bredl's crosses where it seems like they inherit the pattern from a Bredl's and then the color from a carpet. It's like the carpet genes take something that's red and they desperately want to turn it like khaki brown, which is a pretty color. Like,
right.
Don't get me wrong, I love like khaki coastal carpet pythons, but it seems like when you introduce red into carpet python genes,
they know what to do with it. Yeah.
Like that's what gets triggered to be done to it as they mature. So you'll see pictures of Bredl's Jags when they're like a year and a half old, and then you never really see pictures of them again. And that's because they turn khaki.
Right. And their heads kind of have a look to them.
They have a very Bredl's looking head. They have like Bredl's looking eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, I do think the albino Bredlis are really cool.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
they're
amazing.
awesome, right?
Yeah,
fucking amazing.
yeah.
It's similar to the inlands, right?
It's very similar to the inlands.
So here's my thought. This is what I've been going back and forth with all this talk of, so inbreeding and what it's going to do for the future. And, we did talk to Nick, and his sort of hot take on it was that just enjoy the ride while you can type of deal, like the plane's going down.
Drive the car until the wheels come off. Oh, okay.
Until the wheels come off. And I guess to a certain extent, I can understand why I would have that mindset. I mean, This is sort of his livelihood, that kind of thing, that comes into play with it, but at the same time, I think, like, does it make sense to sort of just, not really poo-poo the crosses type of deal, and sort of what the jungle world has kind of done? They've sort of just embraced the fact that, yeah, there's some that we don't know whether it's pure or not, but
look, it's pretty.
Can't tell me it's not a pretty snake,
Well, if you look at older hobbies in herpetoculture, right? You look at something I really like are Nepenthes pitcher plants.
Okay.
If you look at some of the old crosses, like the old cultivars of there, no one in that hobby, other than like a very small fringe group of people, wants anything pure. They're like, no, I want the craziest crosses ever. I want this thing to have like, they kind of do like lineages with it, but it's a little bit different with plants where you can cut off a leaf and then turn it into its own new plant. You do that indefinitely.
Right.
But you've got people that are like, no, you do not want anything pure. You only want to have the crosses because the crosses have proven themselves to be stronger, they're prettier, they look better. Like when they're growing, like they grow out to be a larger plant.
Mm-hmm.
And you've kind of got that in a bunch of other hobbies too. Like, a lot of flowers, a lot of birds are kind of like that too, where you've got like old school line of finches. They're crosses with lots of stuff, and they just look pretty. Part of the domesticating process is making hybrids.
Yeah, it's kind of a couple things that have changed my mind. I heard Chuck talking on Reptile Fight Club, and he was talking about, I think they were talking about, like a sib, let's say, say the dirty word.
You said the dirty word. You're not supposed to say that word.
But some of them are freaking cool. Like I have these carpet pythons that are double het snow, and I kept them just forever. But they look like a black Bredl's python. Like because they sort of don't really have like the saddles type of look of a coastal. They have sort of the spots, if you will, of like I don't know. They're like trying to be all these things at once, and they're basically like black. And like I'm sitting there thinking, like when I was working in my reptile room today, I was like, I've never posted a picture of these. But I bet you if I posted a picture of these, people would lose their shit. And then when I told them what it was, they would be like, the morph people would be like, oh, that's fucking awesome. But like the purists would be like, oh, that's crap. That's bullshit, And I don't know. It's like if it's a cool snake, isn't it a cool snake? It's sort of like what you're saying with Justin with the ball python.
You're allowed to enjoy snakes,
yeah. You know what I mean? You're allowed to.
You're a snake person. You're allowed to like snakes.
Yeah.
Don't be a weirdo that calls out random people on Morph Market or on Fauna or whatever saying your stuff's not pure. And then, going back over to like the inland stuff, the inland crosses, it's so cool with them because you know how inlands have like a really distinct head pattern?
Yeah.
Yes.
The crosses, like, you can tell the head pattern genes like don't know what to do with the like conflicting information they've been given. Because they want to make that like weird inland head pattern, but they also have the carpet python like genes that like want to make the rabbit head or whatever you guys call it. To me, it looks like a rabbit head. But
skull and crossbones, rabbit head.
Yeah, the skull and crossbones sounds a lot tougher. But
a lot better.
It looks it's an Easter bunny to me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Yeah, it's kind of an Easter bunny.
But no, it's super cool. Where like some of those guys, they almost have a they'll have the inland color palette on a carpet's pattern.
Yeah,
like a Darwin's like general pattern but with the black and the silver of an inland. And then some of them are kind of opposite, where they have the Darwin's color on the inland pattern.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That would be, yeah.
So they're gorgeous snakes. They really are.
Yeah.
And they're super, the best two, because I've got like a group of, there's a group of 8 of them. The best two females are some of the cleanest looking carpets I've seen, man, where like it's just a distinct contrast between like a pure silver and a pure black.
Right.
So it's really cool looking. I wish I knew which ones were het albino. That does worry me about this project, is like, I don't want to make a bunch of like, I don't know what these things are.
Yeah, because then what happens to those snakes? You know,
Right.
if you sell it as a pet, somebody's going to put it up on the social media, and somebody's going to come along and hold, you don't know what your carpet, blah, 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 that whole bullshit.
Yeah, and in a perfect world, I try to send these guys up to Canada to be like, hey, man, like send them to Japan or something later on, so we don't have to worry about that here. But I don't know if that's going to be something we can do in the next couple of years, because that was a thing we could do a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you knew the right people. But
Right.
Yeah, this is sort of what I see both sides of it, right? I see the, like, you want to sort of, you know, if you want you want that classic Bredl's look or whatever, you know, you sort of want it to be a pure Bredl's, but like, yeah, I don't know where I fall on that one yet. You know, I've done the crosses, and it's, you know, the old argument that, you know, if you represent them as they are, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but yeah, you could do that, and the person you sell it to, but you know, somewhere down the line,
Somebody's just going to label it as a carpet,
that's going to get lost, you know? Because I mean, think about it, right? If you wholesale them, right? Typically, most wholesale people that I know, at least from what I've seen here on the East Coast, like in the Northeast, is like they have an understanding of, say, carpet pythons, but because they're dealing with so many things, they don't necessarily, you know, have an understanding like, say, us carpet python nerds would, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the Japan thing was kind of the perfect way to do that, because over in Japan, boa constrictors are illegal, and large constrictors are illegal too. So carpet pythons in Japan are actually kind of filling the niche of boa constrictors and of you know, some of the larger constrictors.
Yeah,
gotcha.
That's all they can have, and it's a country that's population's like half the size of ours, so it's a big market.
Right.
Where I think carpets are going to be bigger over in Japan than they are going to be here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, probably.
I do see a lot of people. I know a lot of people have sort of, you know, friended me or like contacted me that have been from there, and I'm just like, wow, that's kind of weird. And then,
and that is kind of a beautiful thing about the reptile world, where I was talking to my mom the other day, and she's like, you realize you know people like all over the world, right?
It's crazy.
And that's such a weird concept for like most people, where I explained to her, like, look, I don't have super close friends, but most of the major cities in Europe, if I needed to have somebody to have dinner with, I could probably figure it out pretty quickly. You know, most of the major cities in Australia, if I needed to crash on somebody's couch, I could probably
100%.
weasel my way into it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I never would have thought in a million years that like we would have went to Scott and Ty's place, you know, but like having, you know, met them online, it just becomes this thing where, or remember when we were at Tinley and Darren came by, you know, and there was a couple other people that were in that group from Australia, and they just came by and they're talking to you, and you're like, wow, I can't believe I know these. Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Yep.
I think it's crazy for me, probably more so than you two, because you guys are young, but like I remember the world where that wasn't the case. You know,
well, that's not the case for most people. Like,
you
know,
you don't think so?
No. Like, okay, my best friend is a pharmacist,
Okay.
Right? So he met some friends at pharmacy school that are from other parts of the world.
Mhm.
But
Right.
still, it's only like I know my buddy's family in Korea, or I know like maybe one family in India or something like that. It's not
okay.
one of those things where and he's even an outlier in that,
Yeah.
where it's like we talk to people from all over the world on a very regular basis. Like
Right.
the actual people there, it's not my buddy's family,
Mhm.
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Just in the NPR chat is.
Yeah,
like,
there's-
Yeah.
You know, it's Europe.
Is there anybody from Asia
Australia?
in the chat yet?
Maybe not yet, but
I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
right?
good question.
it's weird.
don't think so.
It's weird that the carpets might be kind of gaining in popularity there, because I remember back in college, Bob Clark used to like ship his entire collection of his entire stock of available retics and stuff over to the big Japan show, because he used to post about it all the time that he was going over there, and he would like sell out of retics, berms, all this stuff. So it's kind of cool that that's kind of turning a different way.
So, do you have any thoughts as we round out the close on like just the reptile hobby in general? Like, where do you see it going? What do you think is good, bad? Maybe you don't think anything's bad.
I've been in a process the last the last month and a half or so where I've kind of been trying to fall back in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because with everything that's going on, I just fell out, and then like, you know, the reptile hobby's so weird compared to other hobbies people will have. Where like, if we fixed up classic cars or something like that, right?
Right.
You can, if you get a little burnout for a little bit, you can step away and come back in a month or two, and your classic car just got some dust on it.
Right.
You cannot do that with reptiles.
Right.
They'll get a little bit more than dust on them if you step away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you start getting a little bit burnt out, you kind of have to be able to have ways to remotivate yourself. And I see that a lot with not just me, but like being closer to the ball python hobby. And this is kind of the first time a lot of people who got in the last 4 years have seen it where it wasn't, you know, the highlight COVID times where everybody's getting $1,200 checks in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is kind of people saying, hey, I'm starting to get a little burnt out, and I grew really, really fast, really, really fast. Or grew big fast is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do see people doing that.
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah.
I really, really like probably 2020, 2021 was probably the most burnout I've been in a long time, to the point where it was just a terrible lineup of events. You know, COVID for me, where everybody else was staying home, that was not my story. And it was just it was just stressful. It was just always negative. You know, it was just terrible. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then to come home and just be not even so much physically exhausted, just mentally exhausted.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when you can only let X amount of people come into a supermarket, and then you got that freaking knucklehead that just doesn't want to, like, I'm not here to make the rules. I'm just the person that's telling you that this is what it is. You know what I mean? You're fighting with the wrong person type of deal. And it's just at the end of the day, you're just mentally exhausted. I wasn't sleeping right. I wasn't eating right. All these things. And then to come home and have to take care of a collection of, 400 snakes, it just became too much, man. It's just too much, too much.
Yeah.
And to your point, it just went too fast, to the point where
Too big, too fast.
Yeah, too big, too fast, and it just burnt me out. So I had to.
And that's when stuff starts going wrong too. Is the worst part.
Yeah.
100%.
That's when you
100%.
get mites in your collection. Then you haven't seen a mite in years. Like that's when
Exactly
your
what
water starts
happened.
getting bad, or your heater breaks. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And you sort of have to. You have to have a really think about like what you want, or like what's your goal, what do you expect to do this, that's sort of like where I discovered herping. And And I was like, oh, wow. This is.
I don't have to keep these.
This.
I leave them back here in the wilderness.
I freaking love this because I don't know. Maybe you guys answer me this question. I feel like I was addicted to the chase.
Yeah,
the chase is such a. It's so addictive. It really is.
You know,
and I saw that in my own avenues where like I did rare python. I went from just Brettles to I did rare pythons. I did rare skinks. I did ball pythons. And then there's like, that's so many different avenues of the chase that I'm just kind of always in that chase mode. Yeah. And I still kind of am. I got a new bloodline of Angolans last week and I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. I'm looking at projects with Dawn where I'm like, oh man, I kind of got a chance to go buy a really awesome male with him. And then we could like put it to his girls. So now I'm like in high-end ball python shopping mode, and it's that chase is so addictive. But then it's like you kind of forget about what you got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was really the eye-opening thing to me, right? It's just like the morph thing really burnt me out too. And as far as like I felt that because I wasn't trying to race to get them to breed, by the time that I would do it. They were worth nothing. And it's just like, well, I just spent all this money. Not that I care because I still like the snakes or whatever, and I it's not like somebody lied to me or something. I knew what I was doing. It wasn't like I didn't know what I was doing or know how this game worked. But it was just, I don't know, just to be dealt that hand over and over. And I know that like you can breed them and you can still make up. I understand all of those things, right? But it still doesn't change the fact that you spent $10,000 on this, and before you can even produce it, it's worth $3 or $2, or maybe $1,000.
Spend $10,000 on something, and then it becomes really expensive meat in your freezer.
Yeah,
that too.
Yeah, that sucks. I've getting into the blue tongue stuff where I was like, oh yeah, no, this is gonna be awesome. I'm really good at breeding Brettles pythons and I'm gonna keep skinks from the same place and it's gonna be great. And then you bring stuff out of brumation and it dies 2 days later. That was one of I won't say what it was, but I had something very, very, very rare and valuable croak on me as I watched it. To the point where I almost sold everything that night. I almost would have been like, "Hey guys, just take it. I don't want to do this anymore."
There's a huge risk of that. I mean, I am, to be honest, I am feeling that right now. I am feeling the slowdown. I'm feeling sluggish. I'm feeling that something needs to push me to get downstairs, and this is the worst fucking time to feel that way because eggs are hitting the ground. And there's all this other stuff. So Matt keeps talking about coming up here because I almost feel like every once in a while, if you have just friends come by and they get to take a look at your collection, it kind of just rejuvenates you because they're like, this thing is awesome. You're like, yeah, it fucking is. Like, yeah, all right, you need that sometimes.
I've been trying to fix in my room to the point where the way I put it to my friends was like, I'm never going to do YouTube stuff in this room. But, like, I want to get it to the point where I can have friends come over and not have a panic attack.
Right,
because, I need it to be pretty enough that I'm not, like, walking over containers that I'm just too lazy to pick up. Or sweeping up the floor or something like that. Or move things around because I've got snakes and tubs that they're too big for.
Right.
It's kind of been a big push I've had lately of I need to get to my room to the point where I'm proud of it. Because I haven't been proud of it in a little while.
And that just recharges you, though. Like, it gets you plugged in and appreciating your collection again, and it kind of gives you the energy to come over top. A lot of times, I have this drag down, and then eggs start hatching, and that kind of drags me back into it. But say you have a slow year, or like last year, the big thing was the white lips. That like pushed me up to where it was like again, we're talking about the chase. It's like sometimes the chase is getting the rare stuff in your collection to produce. But then now it's like just such of a drag. Like I almost have to force myself to go downstairs and do stuff. And I understand it's like still kind of winterish, still kind of there. There's not a lot to really do because a lot of animals are still in brumation. They're just kind of feeding. Eggs are hitting the ground. Some animals aren't really kind of coming back up, but you kind of need those different moments to kind of recharge you. Otherwise, you will completely burn out. Or like what Casey said, like something bad happens when you're in this kind of a downslope, and then you just bottom out.
Just off the cliff. Yeah, it's terrible.
Which is, I've been there for a little while now, and I'm trying to bring myself out of it because sometimes you need a win. And the reptile world has a bad habit of giving you no wins.
Especially when you're in a rare python world or in a colubrid world or something.
Gut punching lows and then very few highs. It's just
my God, yes.
God. Oh.
I think that Keith goes through this, right? Because a lot of times I'll talk to him and it's not until we go on a reptile trip, you know, that he's sort of, or we come up and talk to and hang out with him or something, something along those lines where it kind of rejuvenates you. But like, I mean, think about the species that he's working with, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's been able to breed all of these other pythons that he's done. He's bred birds of all types. You know what I mean? It's not like he doesn't know what he's doing, but yet he can't crack
that one.
This one thing. And like, I just can't imagine how you go year after year after year. And, you
bang your head against the wall, man. Cause that's with the white lips. It was just like, come the fuck on. Like it was just, and it's just one setback after another. Cause like I've had white lips and I've got them up the size and I had them locking up and then the male dies. And it's like, well, shit. And then you have to totally redo it again. So,
yeah. I don't know, man. That whole like trying to find little wins and stuff when you're not. Skinks are kind of like, you ever heard how horse people go through stuff where they say a horse's only goals in life are homicide and suicide? Skinks are like that, except they don't commit homicide.
my wife works. My wife works at a horse veterinarian. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. They find very, very, very creative ways to kill themselves or get a weird infection or something like that. So
they're like boats. The happiest day with skinks is when you buy the skink and then when you sell the skink. Everywhere else in between is hell. Yeah.
I mean, I did get I honestly, like, I think one of the babies that came out last year is a het melanistic. I really, really do.
Okay.
That's cool.
Because the male I'm using he's a het male from Thai Park, looks like a het. 2 babies came out. One of them kind of looks like a regular skink. The other one is like significantly deeper orange and significantly deeper black.
Interesting.
So that is a incomplete dominant trait. It's hard to pick out. It's kind of like yellow belly and ball pythons where sometimes people are like, yeah, that's absolutely what that is. And other times it's kind of subtle.
Maybe. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I have been trying to get those guys up to size. I hope that het is a male because we're just now getting the morph skink stuff going in the U.S. Like the ivory stuff.
I saw that.
White northerns. Those have just become available to people. And some of these morphs have been in the States for a long time. They're just not breeding. Albinos have been in the States for like 15 years now. We've had albinos almost as long as the Australians have. Melanistics. There's multiple melanistics in the U.S. and they just don't want to breed.
Was it the albinos that were stolen from Prehistoric Pet way back when?
Maybe. I know that somebody had some albinos in the U.S. that got stolen.
I remember that because I was like one of those, like, why the hell would you do that? Because how are you going to...
How are you going to sell that?
Like, how are you going to sell that? Like, what are you going to do?
There's like 5 of them in the country, and we all know one of them got stolen.
I'm like, I remember that. I remember thinking that because, like, that is the dumbest crime ever. Like, that's like boosting, like, one of the only cars ever created of this type. It's like, what are you going to do with it? So, yeah. Jesus.
Yeah, and then you take with the skink thing, the whole like not knowing to be able to sex it type of deal, and
Ryan McVeigh thinks he's figured out how to pop them.
Okay.
I mean, or is Ben working on DNA stuff for them too?
That was in the works. There was a rumor about that for a while. Yeah. I don't know if that's taken a back seat to the ball python shed stuff.
Probably.
I mean,
right?
you figure out the
I actually
ball
talked to Ben a
python.
little bit today because he just came out with one of the new tests that I asked him about months ago.
Okay.
You figure out the ball python shed stuff, and then that pays for the weird stuff that we need for other things.
I think that's what you have to do. Is that the money comes in from the ball python sheds, and then we figure out how to sex Gila monsters because six people care about that.
Right?
Yeah. Like only 4 people will care, or being able to see if there's actually jungle in this diamond. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think for me that's sort of why I've made a move to keeping a lot. So I said this before, but Nipper and Rob have been on me for a long time about doing exactly that. But I think that there's a certain level of I have to have X in order to be somebody, or and
that doesn't include a 10-year strong podcast that gets you so much recognition.
Nope. I told him it doesn't count.
No.
Nope. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't look. I don't know. It's sort of like one of those things. If you have the podcast, then you should be able to talk about what you're doing, and if you're not doing it, if you're not doing anything, then why do people want to hear from you? I don't know. It's weird inside my head, but
no, I get it. And again, that's probably also a chasing thing. If there's an alternate universe Eric that had just done the snakes and then they met you, they'd be like, "Oh my God, I have to go do that." There's kind of like the version of you that didn't do it would be so excited to meet the version of you right now that did do it.
Yeah. I don't know. For me though, I did come to realize that I was addicted to the chase, and that when I have an animal that I thought would be the pinnacle of what I would want, and then when I get it, somehow I'm not. I still have to go and get something else.
There's the next thing.
Doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it kind of sucked for me because I felt like I was not doing service to the animals that I had, and that I loved. I supposedly love these things so much, and now all of a sudden I wish I had the capacity to sort of focus. I see people like Martin, or I think of who else would come to mind that's like that, or even John Battaglia, where he picked a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Paris, you know what I mean? He picked a thing.
Yeah.
Boom. Casey. Exactly.
2014 Casey. 2014,
yes.
Rare model.
I was going to say you, but I know you're sort of diversified at the moment. Or 2011 Owen, where he's just coastal carpet guy.
Thank God that guy's dead.
Or 2012 Eric guy, where he's just popwin carpets, I don't know. But here we are, 2023, and we're still
2023, and I'm sitting here and getting colubrids and pythons, and I can't remember the last time I brought in a new Morelia.
I have 2 wild-caught IJs coming again tomorrow.
Yeah. Right.
So these things from Lucas, that's the most excited I've been about bringing in a Morelia in years.
Oh, the M.bredli. Yeah.
Which I don't even know. They might not even be anything. But you know what? If there is any chance that they are, now I know I have the only unrelated ones.
Right.
Vindication for all those years wasted.
There's going to be Warren in the corner. No,
I'm going to send Warren those steps.
No.
You need to tell me.
Damn you.
Give it to me straight, Warren.
Give it to me straight, Warren.
Yeah, I only do.
It's the only way I know how.
Yeah. So. All right. So, what do you got coming up? You got anything cool that you're hoping to? I think you kind of talked about this a little bit, but what do you got coming up for this year that you're excited about?
I am giving the blue tongue skinks a try. I'm trying out the het melanistic boy again. For a little while I was afraid he was sick.
Okay.
When I pulled him out of brumation, he had bubbly eyes and bubbly mouth, which is a really bad sign for those guys.
No.
But in the last 2 days, I popped him in the incubator and kept him at 86 and kind of kept him hydrated, and he seems fine now. So That seems to have kind of fixed his issue. So I'm hoping he's going to end up doing something for me this year. And then my Western blue tongue skinks, which if I got Western blue tongue skink babies, that'd be a big win.
Pretty cool.
Talking about a big win, that would be a big win. And I put them together last week. The male went for the female chased him off. And lately I've kind of just been putting them together for hours and not looking at them. Like I'll listen to make sure they're not like killing each other, but like if I don't know if they bred or not. I just know that I've put them together and they're both alive.
Okay.
And then
it's white lip breeding.
Right? They've been together and neither one of them's dead.
So there's still two of you. Success.
Yes.
So, I mean, a couple ball python things. Then the Bredls, I've got a bunch of some hypo stonewash stuff that could go. There's a couple males that I've been really excited about. Like I've got some full blood hypo males.
Cool.
Well, one that came from Ralph Polinsky, and Ralph Polinsky's group throws these like stripy hypos.
Okay.
Right.
And I've got a really stripy male that could go, and it's not a genetic stripe.
Oh, nice.
So it's like a polygenetic tiger hypo Bredls thing that I just want to see what he does.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm going to be looking for a hypo female, so if you produce them and you have any, let me know.
And I've got babies right now that I really need to move, so we can talk about that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Casey's like, sold. It's like, already.
Get them out of here.
Please, God, take them away.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Yeah, that would be cool if you could do. There's that look. I saw it. I forget whose page I was on today. It was somebody that I have Royal Reptiles maybe in Australia, and they had these Bredls with those. The one, remember that one that was in? I think it was in Europe, right?
So
where it had like those spots.
You and I had a disagreement about this our first episode, and then after listening to it, I was like, "Oh, we were talking about two different things."
Okay.
So in the UK, there used to be a line, and I had one. Not from that line, but I had a similar look where they have like dotted line down their backs instead of the stripes.
Yeah.
And then in Australia, they've got some that have a similar look, but then they also like kind of look stonewashy. And then there's one in Germany that has that look too.
Right.
Where like it's not a stonewash because it's so much more extreme than a stonewash.
Right.
Like if I described it to you, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's what that is. But they've got like dotted lines down their back and no pattern on the sides.
Yes.
They look really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I felt like an idiot too because the that patternless. I think I said this like a while back on the NPR. The patternless Bredl thing that I guess somebody in
there's a couple
in California or something like that.
There's two different versions of that. So you've got the faders in Australia, which they kind of look like olive pythons. Like it kind of turns a Bredl's python into an olive python.
Right.
And then you've got the patternless, the vanishing pattern one in California.
Right.
Born with kind of the same idea what we were just talking about, where it's got a dotted line down its back and no pattern on the sides. And the head's completely patternless. And then like as it's grown, it's just lost more and more and more pattern, which that animal's like a white whale for me. I tried really, really hard to get it. And then I tried to get it with Nick. And then we failed, and now he still got it. But, I mean, Tomas is a nice guy. He's the guy that's got it. I'm not, mad about it. It's just, that was one of those, I had the thrill of the chase that just never pulled off. That's the addiction of the chase.
Yes.
We see this one-off animal in California that I couldn't get. So it's like a white whale for me.
Right. Well, he had hets.
Yeah, he had hets.
That's why I was like, "What the hell?"
He had
and
hets,
then I looked in the book, and I'm like,
$400 or something like that. It was cheap as hell. Possible.
So they were siblings to that one. I don't think that animal's produced babies yet.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a female, so she should be coming up pretty soon, ready to go. But
Jesus,
she's a one-off. That pair has produced multiple clutches. None like her have ever come out. So I think if she is something, she's going to be incomplete dominant.
Right. So there would be no such thing as a possible head.
Yeah, but I don't think he also had. And this isn't my story to tell, so I'm not going to get too much into it. But I don't think he and that group necessarily were on the same page of what it was. because he wholesaled the babies to some people and they sold them how they were going to sell them.
Right. Okay.
Gotcha.
But I know that snake's still alive. She's still, last I heard, she's still vanishing pattern and still kicking. So if babies come out of that, I'll try to get something.
if they happen,
the chase
I will
will
be
ensue.
there.
The chase will ensue.
All right.
Casey's like, the game is afoot, and he just runs out. What?
Yeah. Oh man, awesome. So, is the best place for people to find you is on Instagram?
Yes, Instagram. So I have
Cannon Fire
Reptiles on Instagram. I also have a personal page, which is Creatures with Casey, which is the one where if I'm going out herping or hiking or something like that, I'll take pictures. I'm on that one a lot more because when people decided to make group chats, they decided to use that one instead of Cannon Fire. Because I'm on a lot of Instagram group chats, kind of like we have on the Facebook group chats too. But yeah.
I didn't realize that you could do. See, this is how much I don't use Instagram. I want to use Instagram more, right?
They have group chats on the Instagram now, do they?
The Horticulture Network crowd is doing the Instagram stuff, and the Morelia Python crowd does the Facebook stuff.
Yeah,
I'm sure that there's a younger, that's a Gen X millennial, and then I'm sure the Gen Zs have a TikTok group chat, if you can even do that. They send each other pictures of them dancing with their snakes.
Is that what we have to do now to be relevant? All right.
I won't do TikTok.
I refuse.
That's where I draw the
won't
line.
either. I haven't done
The TikTok is the Jag for me. That's it. Scaleless,
Nope,
Jag.
too far.
No, too far. Too far.
That's the pairing too far. Yep.
I can't do it. Come on, man. You don't want a Gen Xer on there with Gen Zers and
He's on TikTok though. Keith McPeak is on TikTok.
I know.
He sends us all the TikTok videos all the time.
He sends us TikTok videos, and I think, you know what he said? More so than anything, me and him have this thing going where every day we're sending each other back musicians or of any type. It doesn't have to be guitar players. It's just of any type, right? Because he's just blown away by music and people's ability to be able to do that, right? But he'll send me all these TikToks all day long of these guitar players, and it's so I get to watch it, but I'm not on there. So it's kind of
how we all are on TikTok right now. Is even if you're not on it, your friends that are kind of let you know the cool stuff you'd be into.
Yeah, 100%. So I like it that way.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
I don't need to be involved. Other people will find what I like and send it to me. Yeah.
I kicked and screamed going on YouTube, man. I didn't want to do that, but then I'm like, I guess this is where podcast is going.
Still not happy about it, but yeah.
Gotta have to go this way. But oh man, yeah, good talking to you, man. It was good to catch up, and
yeah, y'all too.
Yeah. I hope you hit those things that get you pumped up and get you back in the game, and
try to catch you at a Daytona or something.
Yes, absolutely. I've been talking to friends about Daytona a lot this week, where we're trying to figure out plane tickets and stuff like that, because I drive down, but I'm driving down through Atlanta. So if some people can only get a cheap ticket to Atlanta, I can do a pickup thing and then drive down to Daytona.
We have Carpet Fest the weekend prior, and then other things. So I'm not sure if it's going to be able to swing this year.
So I'm on vacation that week.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, can I
end with Daytona, dude? Just go down.
Can I just sneak away for a Friday and come down?
Admitting that I do that for people on a podcast, because I really only offer. I do it for you, Eric. If you want to ride down shotgun next to me, I'll fly into Atlanta. It's about a few $100 cheaper.
Is it?
There you go.
Yeah. You just have to leave in the morning on a Thursday.
Morning is fine for me. I am a morning
Easy
person.
Enough,
yeah. All right, I'll keep in touch. I got to figure out if I think it's doable for me, and I would like to go down there and hang out.
Ditto.
Good time.
I'm going to try. I'd like to do that as a long weekend kind of thing right after Carpet Fest. So we'll see.
And for our crowd, it's for me. For me at least, Daytona's on the same level as New Year's Eve. For the level of, I look forward to it and I plan things around it. I don't think people really have that with reptile shows other places, but for us, Daytona's the thing for the year.
It seems like the THP crowd has sort of made that home base, which is awesome.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's kind of
rejuvenated
that show
too.
Well,
you guys all seem to be located
Tinley
up around
Park.
Pennsylvania, Maryland, those places. Or we're like Georgia, South Carolina, Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got the East Coast all
Locked up, yeah.
lockdown
We got
between
down there.
THP and NPR. We have it on lockdown. South of this line is THP territory.
North is that? Yeah.
No, I love those guys.
Oh.
Yeah, it was fun herping with them and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, okay, all right, man. Like I said, awesome talking with you, and yeah, best of luck this season.
Thank you. You guys too.
All right.
Cool. Sounds good, Casey. Thanks.